Hello and welcome into the caster desk. We're here for the Unified Grand Prix Round 3. It's the losers bracket between TSM Academy and No Org. Myself, Mad Magical, joined in by Coco, the Dragon Coco. This should be a very good series. As the desk was saying, you have No Org, who are looking to take down every single Academy team, going up against TSM Academy, who obviously want to be able to prove everyone that they deserve to continue on improving grounds and that they are going to be a strong team.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just going to get some formalities out of the way as well. I'm going to help even the score on the analyst desk and help out my man Jensen and say that TSM Academy might be popping out on the series. I'm just speaking for the caster cottage as it is for my house because Kangas is my roommate. And if TSM Academy does win, I will be getting a picture of Hanser flexing, framing it, and putting it in his room so he always knows who is the better man with the biceps. So on top of that, let's actually get into the series at hand. Because with No Org and TSM Academy, they've both played very similar styles, but No Org has always had the upper hand in their matchups.
Yeah, you look at how No Org play. They love to play this win lane, win game style. They always try to come out of the gate strong, and up against TSM Academy, they are a team that also have a lot of strength in their laners, a lot of strength in how these veteran players are able to play, and we have seen a team that tried to match them in that in CLG Academy lose to New Org. I feel like TSM Academy cannot come into this one with that same mindset. Do you think so, Coco?
No, I don't think so. This is definitely something that you have to be a little bit spicy. You have to trade things up a bit, but you still have to hit a lot of checkboxes of the traditional style that you were familiar with this early game performance. Like I mentioned, both of these teams are pretty much familiar with each other in their play styles, but with a lot of that top-heavy play in No Org's favor, you need to sort of neutralize that win condition for TSM Academy and then focus elsewhere. The desk talked about Yersan coming in and being this new fresh blood to the team. I want to see some roaming supports as well to help amplify not just Cody's son, but the rest of the team. Babip and Sword as well. Get this roaming support online, but already No Org is smelling blood in the water, banning out the Thresh.
Thresh getting taken away. I wonder if Rel is going to join on the bench. As you look over to the side of TSM Academy, Seraphine blue side ban, a bit unusual. Normally Seraphine, you see her banned red side purely for the fact that if she's left open, you've seen a lot of teams grab it immediately. But TSM Academy just don't want to bother. They want to get that Udyr. They want to be able to have Babip in a position to be able to impact the map a little bit more.
Well, it's those unfortunalities, right? And the fact that TSM Academy doesn't really play Seraphine in any way. Like, Sword doesn't play it. Cody's son isn't really a fan of it either. So you are sort of forced into banning Seraphine out on that blue side. And then you go with the more contested pick of that Udyr. This does also say that Olaf is a possibility. Onda's Nidalee, is online. And both of those are great options. Olaf being picked up. And this is where you can start to be a little bit more favorable into keeping some flexes, where you can go for some ADC or supports at the moment, or you can pick up your mid lane for a roaming priority, or again, that top side focus that you could grab with either the Gnar, which is still available and has become a great blind pick, or things, I'd like to say like the Gragas as well, though Viper, not really a big fan of that.
I was expecting Rel to be picked up there.
Okay.
I was expecting that to be taken away from your son, just because you were talking about roaming supports, and I feel like Rel, Alistar are the two that really came to my mind. Rel, I feel like works better with that Kaisa that you already see Cody's son want to be able to get, and Tristana now being locked in by the side of No Org. And this is an interesting pick, because we've seen for quite some time that mid lane Tristana has been like the high priority, but she's slowly working her way back into that bot lane.
Yeah, so you have to take into account that that is a potential flex pick. Fire could pilot the Yordle Gunner in that mid lane, but Value is not too unfamiliar with that. He is very well versed on the champion as well, and it can play into that carry potential with the underperforming or those dark horse team fight players that the desk talked about previously. We didn't touch on the Kaisa Alistar too much because of how traditional it is with the current meta, but it is something I really agree with. You get that roaming support, you get a strong team fighter that can trade effectively in lane. So right now with TSM Academy bringing out a good old-fashioned composition of 11.3 and 11.4 styles, it's giving me some glimmers of hope, but getting into the second ban phase, this is where I need to see some versatility to shut out Viper, shut out that top side, and get towards something where he can really start to oppress Fire and really go blow for blow in that mid lane.
Yeah, but you've seen some of these strong picks taken away. Viper loves that Silas in the top lane, that flexibility that it provides for a team with how he's able to maneuver, grab, ults from everyone. But I'm also looking at how the mid lane pool has been pinched slightly. You have Azir, that was something that we were talking a little bit before. Same with Twisted Fate. Something that could help Sword be able to impact the rest of the map, but they're the ones who banned it from 5Fire, since he is a player who loves to be able to get out of mid lane, go elsewhere, try to see what they can get in these side lanes, especially top side of the map, since you see Anda and Viper always playing hand in hand together, and then bring in 5Fire with them. It makes sense that they don't want to have to bother with anything that might be able to rotate.
Don't really agree with the Syndra ban coming from TSM Academy. I think that's something that you could have held open, because then you could just do like an Orianna Syndra situation and just have that as a neutral state for the lane. But it does also leave that Orianna for no orc to go ahead and blind pick, though it does tell us that it is going to be a Tristana and Rel on the bottom side. However, there is that slight inkling of doubt for me, because Viper has played ranged top laners before, so you never know on that. But with Cody Sun grabbing Gnar for Haunter, you're going to be finalizing out this composition, so you've got like that great blind pick, can neutralize that top side, and really right now we're just looking for that final mid lane. And we were talking about in the draft, Victor is something that could be a viability, where it is a good utility mid laner that can also answer a lot of counter jungling from Anda fairly effectively, and is really good at creating a good bubble and zone control factor in the later team fights when you start fighting for those objectives.
Well, that's the whole idea, is how you're going to be able to play around the objectives and zone control, especially against something like having an Orianna with Rel, with Olaf, who are able to jump into the backline. I'm curious to see what they pick into that top lane. If they want to go for something like Jace or Kalista, and this is something we had talked about before. I didn't think that it would be this early that we got to see this. So it's the ranged top laners. You had already kind of alluded to it.
Yeah.
Tristana maybe going for Viper. But the fact that they're actually going for it, and Kalista works so well with Rel, since you can, grab her, use the Fate's Call, toss her in, immediate Magnet Storm to draw everyone in. This is an interesting flex coming in from No Org to start off the series.
Yeah, I guess I had to give myself a pat on the back for that one, because we were talking about it earlier, where it was Viper with those renowned ranged pickups that he goes up and sort of, he uses them as, I guess a litmus test is the best way to say it when you're on the amateur scene. He's like, okay, how well can a top laner actually neutralize themselves and neutralize the oppression of that a ranged top laner does provide in those situations? And at the last moment, they do swap the Kalista over to Viper. I prefer that just because in that matchup, and it is more notorious in how oppressive it could be in the top side of the map. Tristana just a little bit untested on that side, and in the end, the Tristana is built for team fighting and for skirmishes more than the Kalista is in this composition. She's there to pick off stragglers, cause that chaos that TSM Academy is really going to try and push away from, so they can play that more traditional style and play more invested into what the new member of Yursan is bringing into the roster.
Oh man, I'm excited to see this, especially because you don't get to see too often Viper play these. We saw at the beginning of all these proving grounds and these circuits that we're going through, the Vayne was picked up a couple times for Viper, like you said, as that test. See how far you can push the top lane. But here, it is I don't think it's a test anymore. I think this is where it's all about trying to be able to get that domination topside. Make it so Haunter's not going to be in a position to be able to set up 1-3-1, utilizing Gnar, utilizing Victor, because you have to deal with Tristana, who is far better at bowling down these turrets quickly.
Of course. So I'd be curious to see how well they're going to be able to sort of address this situation for TSM Academy against this more untraditional composition that Norg is dishing out to them. Graphics a little messed up because of how quickly they picked ban through. If you're on the LCS, you would be sort of getting a warning from that. You're not allowed to trade after 22 seconds, but nonetheless, it's something where it really indents on this early game and this early game discrepancy that these two teams had. I talked about how these teams are very familiar, like in the fine details, they have some similarities in team overall KDA and their counter jungling presence, and of course with the new improvements from how they've been doing in UGP, their current dragon prioritization as well. They've both been prioritizing dragon just as much, their counter jungling as I mentioned, but the slight differences are actually all in the early game sides. Average game time is also heavily favored in No Org. They're able to close out 8 minutes faster than TSM Academy. And in their gold discrepancy, they are coming out against their opponents on average 3,000 more gold at 15 minutes, where TSM Academy is just under 1,800. So it's showing you how oppressive No Org is in these early games, and that is what I'm going to be looking for if TSM Academy, with this new installment of Yursan, is going to find these new avenues of approach, find the GOAT path, and break open this constant oppression that No Org is going to be throwing at them. Because, you know, I was also talking with Babip earlier today and asked him, how much practice have you guys got in with your new installment with your son? He says it's only been about 3 days. And that's something that, for me, brings up a little bit of a red flag when we're asking so much for this new addition to the team.
Exactly. It's going to be that shot. It needs to be that shot caller, at least. It needs to be the one that's really taking the helms for the team and telling them what they need to be able to do. And when you don't have as much practice, it makes it so difficult when you have to go against such a strong and confident team like No Org, a team that always comes out of the gate swinging. They always are going to look to see if they can push you to the limits, try to find and really force that chaotic style early on to break you, to beat you down to a bloody pulp, so that way you're never really able to do anything. Since this is something that we had talked about with CLG Academy facing off against No Org last time, that was a team that wanted to be able to hold on and wait. They couldn't do that. There's too much pressure that came out of No Org immediately that they weren't able to get to that position where they felt most powerful.
Of course. And I don't know about too much about Yursan being a captain for TSM Academy within only 3 skirmish days, but at least like a second or third captain. Like when you're the guy steering the cruise ship and the captain is telling you where to go, if Yursan's able to turn the wheel and actually help direct what the rest of the team is aspiring to create, that is what I'm really going to be looking for out of him. And if he's able to do that, it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to be really invested to see how well he's going to be able to perform later down the line and later throughout the remainder of the year. But the one inkling of doubt that I also have in my mind is when you jump over into these new regions, especially when you're moving from the PCS to the LCS, there is still a little bit of senior discount coming in, especially when you're dealing with members like Cody Sun and Hanser. You're the fresh blood, you're the new guy on the team. You are very prone to abandoning your old ways on how you operate to accommodate these veterans who play a different style. I don't want that coming out of Yursan, but it is a bear trap that could pop out in this series.
See, I'm still stuck on, I'm pretty sure the term for, like, if you have the captain and there's a person who actually, like, you know, steers the ship, I think that's called the helmsman.
The helmsman, yeah.
I was about to say, okay, I couldn't remember the term. So you want your son to be that helmsman. You want to be the person who can help steer the ship. And honestly, I agree with you on that one. And I feel like even with that, you were talking about don't fall into the bear trap, you know, not playing your style. That actually is going to be fine because how TSM Academy normally play. Cody Sun's fine being on an island by himself.
Of course.
They've ditched him, and that's your son style. Leave, go elsewhere, roam around the map, try to impact other lanes. I feel like the team actually fits well for this player to be able to slot in immediately and feel at home, purely for the fact that it is already a similar style to how he was playing in the PCS.
Been talking a bit about TSM Academy for a while just because of how expectations are for them going into this series, but at the end of the day, this series is mostly about bragging rights and moving closer to like a higher seeding in this tournament in UGP. It doesn't affect Proving Grounds whatsoever. They're all into Proving Grounds. They're all qualified. Congrats, you did it. But if you can get an extra cash in, like if you can get a little bonus at the end of the day, at the end of this tournament, and you get to say, hey, we were able to beat No Org. They don't have a good record against Academy teams. That's great. But again, it's also the same side of the coin. Now that we can look at No Org, if they're able to beat 2 Academy teams, that's pretty scary going into the next Tier 1 tournament, who have little lower seedings of Evil Geniuses Academy and Golden Guardians Academy. And that is a scary thought to have for those teams going into that. But also, again, it's also the same. You get some cash out as well. And when you look at the team and you look at the roster, Firefire and Ando would love some extra money in their pockets for helping bring this team to where they are now, even through all the thick and thin and the drama that has happened so far in Amateur.
And the thing is, if No Org are able to beat TSM Academy, that is 3 Academy heads that they've been able to gather for themselves. They've been able to take down 3 because they already took down Golden Guardians Academy over in Cup. They've beaten CLG Academy here. Now getting into game 1 of the lower bracket, round 3. If they're able to take down TSM Academy, that'd be their 3rd one that they have gathered for themselves, and you better bet that they want to.
Yeah, sorry folks for the unusual loading screen time. I had to go get another hamster, so we are all good to go.
What'd you name him?
Nonetheless-
What'd you name the hamster?
Baba Booey Louie.
Baba Booey Louie, what a name.
Yeah.
I actually really like that. All right.
Okay.
But yeah, like you said, we had a little bit of issue. We're back onto the Rift. What were we going to say, Coco?
So we can take a little bit of dissection at no work for a bit because of how much time we spent on TSM Academy during the break. But it is some crazy start out, right? Like you have a double AD composition, you have just the stabilization of the bottom side of the map, and with 5-Fire on that Orianna, it just screams that they are going to be trying to oppress Hanzo on this top side of the map, and that is exactly what they want to play. They want to take 3 quadrants of the jungle as well for Onda to just power farm over Babip, and already they're making that late invade pressure that they are so notorious for doing in the amateur scene and taking away Babip's blue buff.
Last week, we saw it both games against CLG Academy, doing it right here against Babip and TSM Academy. Not too surprising, but I do want to see Babip exactly path like this, not even try to go towards the chicken. So since he didn't go near them, there's not going to be that vision, which means that no org know exactly where he is, that he's going straight for the blue buff. So it's going to be a vertical clear, though Hunter trying to contest, at least delay a little bit of Anda getting that Gromp.
I respect it. Also, it makes him a little bit lower, so if they do run into that Rift Scuttle contention, that Babip might have the upper hand, but we all know how powerful an Olaf is in the early stages. His lifesteal is absolutely insane, though the forcing of this vertical jungling, as you mentioned, just continues to pressure into this story that we are telling for the top side. As you can see, Viper already making sure that Hanser is very well familiar with his turret, and it can help us dissect a little bit more of how the bottom lane is looking as well, where TSM's saying, great, we have jungle priority down here. Let's try and see if we can get some action and some pressure here. But already, Noork seeing if they can force out Babip from their jungle.
Not going to do so, though. He's going to be able to stay strong in that jungle since it is now his. And you can even see bot lane that Cody-san and your-san were able to get a decent level lead, a little bit of an experienced lead over Value and Big. Kind of what you'd expect. Kai'Sa's such a weird champion, in my opinion, because of how she functions. Where normally you think of her being this low-range marksman that struggles to be able to do too much in lane, but when she gets level 2 advantage over her opponent, suddenly you always have this where she's able to pressure and really stand right near the wave to make it so that Value and Big can't really come up and step near their minions unless they want to get heavily chunked out.
Yeah, that's the power of Hail Blades, right? Like, if they're able to walk in, if she's able to get into out of range once, she'll be able to hit 1, 2, or 3 and proc that passive, really get some shred. Speaking of autos, oh man, Hansu,
Jesus.
He's just not having a fun time, my man.
No, he's not. And look at that. And is already getting the undertow to be able to get the hop away from Hanser. Hanser should be fine, taking a little bit of hook. The flash coming in, flash reciprocated by both of them. Trying to get the undertow, barely not connecting that, so they're going to have to fall back. But that 2 flashes blown on the side of no org, not getting it. Hanser was able to survive long enough. Sure, you're going to be able to get a lot of plates and pressure topside, but you have to be careful now that both of you have burned your flash.
Yeah, and Babip's coming here to see if he can help out with a counter gank and reply. Onda hanging around. This might be over ambitious for no org, and they could get punished.
Let's see, though. It's not going to actually have Sword nearby since he's recalling. It's going to be a TP mid lane. So they're just going to be able to answer that. Not going to have the pressure. Instead, you're going to see a trade of the Scuttle Crabs finally come in for Anda as he takes himself that Scuttle Crab, knowing that bot lane was already taken by Babip.
Yeah, in hindsight, you're a little bit bummed out for Babip, saying, wow, they really invested so many resources to try and get a first blood onto Hansu here. I could have been able to sneak around and take that scuttle, but of course, he does not have all that information in his sight. He's going to go ahead and clear out his wolves, potentially hit a reset, because this is, at this moment in time, there's not a lot on the map for these junglers, and you're encroaching on the dragon timer. With all of this pressure that you were able to accrue from that vertical jungle force that no orb threw at you, this is where I think you start looking for first dragons. You start contesting with that laning presence that you mentioned with Kai'Sa and Yursan. Get them to push out that bottom lane. You already used your TP with Sword in that mid lane. Get that mid lane priority as well, and make sure you can get this first dragon. Start scaling early where you can, where no org is already trying to throw into those early win conditions on that top half of the map.
The problem, Coco, it's like I mentioned, why I find Kai'Sa so weird, is the fact that if she gets that level 2 advantage, really strong. But once that's lost, once the opponent's able to keep even with experience and with gold, you see it being a lot more difficult for Kai'Sa to be able to step up. I know you're looking at Sword mid lane. Oh, gotta be more careful, man. That Frisbee sure gives you a shield, but it's not gonna be enough if he's gonna look for the all-in soon.
Yeah, but Onda is also right next on that Raptors wall. If he was able to hit in an undertow, that's just enough damage to possibly kill Sword with another auto coming in from 5-Fire. And That is just an absolute disaster if that was to come into fruition. But both of these junglers now on this bottom side of the map, we're going to have to see how the fight and how the resets come in for both these bottom lanes, because that can help sort of tell the tale for the next few minutes in that dragon priority that I was teasing earlier on. And
Coco, can we get away from top lane? Oh, I can't look at it anymore.
Top lane's just in a miserable state, man. It's a sad place.
Keep going talking about other things. I just can't stand to look at this. Ugh.
So, change it, like, let me tell you about an ADC, Callista. Boy, oh boy, is she
I said
fun.
not to talk about this! I said go away!
Yeah, so, this is again where all this oppression on the top side of the map still allows different openings. And I actually, I was talking about that teasing, that contention for resets coming in on that bottom side. Norg was able to win out on that one and get the real value, no pun intended, of this river control and are able to take away the first dragon. I don't like this call coming in from TSM Academy because they had just given over all that pressure away, but No Org had read the signs and were able to be able to pick up that early objective. Maybe they get first blood on the tail end.
Fair stance, trying to see if he can hop towards it. Blast cone right into the pathway, trying to get back towards anybody, but no one's nearby. Viper, you're gonna die to first blood. Got a lot of damage onto Bob Vip. Suddenly, he's trying to get around. How the hell did you do that, Viper?
TSM Academy was trying to give and donate that kill over to Hanser so he could catch up in economy because of that 30 CS discrepancy that he has, but because of that, it delayed just enough damage output for Viper to stack up those spears and be able to take that first blood onto Babip. What a huge mistake coming in from TSM Academy, but very well played from Viper, getting the luck of the draw.
Seriously, that was beautiful to see as mid lane. You're going to have a lot of damage onto Big. He was pulled back in by the gravity field. The Chaos Urn has been ticking away, raining hell upon his head, but it seems like it's a flash going to be reciprocated with the laser pointer. Not doing enough damage. Shockwave going to be able to draw back in Sword. They got the flash coming in, trying to see if they can get the knock up bounce around, and they chase down for Fire to be able to get the kill onto Sword. As Ursan trying to get it away. Can you get underneath the turret? Ursan taken down by the double kill out of Fire. More gold into the pocket of Norg.
I respect the roam coming in from Yersan, but it is just turned completely around by Fire and Big. Big surviving just long enough. Sword was trying to push in, seeing if he could get a final tick of the Chaos Storm to get that kill onto Big, but it wasn't able to come to fruition. They got a little bit greedy, extended over that time. Ando was in the vicinity to help close in, and with the assistance and lockdown from Fire, they're able to pick up 2 kills for themselves onto their mid laner, already expanding this gold lead, and boy oh boy does it give them so much control of the map as well. You're looking at the Rift Herald and your son Hex flashing over saying, I gotta keep eyes on this objective because it is the shell and the crab that will break open our defenses.
As you can see that right now, the current gold, Fire and Viper, the top side of the map, having so much gold in their pockets. And really for Fire, being able to get those 2 kills mid lane is going to be able to help out around that objective, as you were just mentioning. Talking about the Rift Herald being up, where's Big? Hey, he's topside, making it so that they're going to be able to have an easier time to zone control around that pit so that they can all rotate and be able to pick up an objective and possibly look to see if they can give more gold over to Viper in this lane that he is absolutely shredding apart.
It's just absolute oppression up here. Complete command and conquering. No need to really try and do anything else but just farm. And if you ever see a Gnar peek his head out to try and see if he can get some EXP from a cannon minion or a caster or two, you can immediately just throw him right back under his turret and pin him there for all time. Though this is where TSM Academy, they've read the signs of saying, you know what, we need to find a lead somewhere. We need to get some aggression, some control in this game. And they're seeing bottom lane and the bottom quadrants of the jungle as that path to that.
But they have no idea where Anda is. He's only now just going to be spotted by that control ward on the minimap. So they could have actually possibly threatened to go for that full invade onto that blue buff, stolen everything away, but because they lacked the knowledge, they were too afraid to make the play, and this is going to give more gold and more opportunities over to No Org.
A good call out from the observers here as well. The top lane is primed and ready to be taken here with the Rift Herald to crack that open and get some plates. And from there, you can start rotating the map around. You can throw Callista and Big into the bottom side of the map and value to catch some waves on the top side. The versatility of the double ADC composition in the mid game is very far stretched and very versatile because of how well you can catch those side lane resources and keep your economy at a maximum.
As you can see from the gold differences between the two teams, Fire, we expected them to have the most gold, but the thing a little bit surprising to me is Cody Sun actually is making up a lot of that deficit. for the
Sure.
side of TSM Academy. Sure, there hasn't been much plays happening in the bot lane, but this could be the prime opportunity for TSM Academy. If they can somehow get Cody-san to be a part of this, they can get some great value out of him to be able to make these plays and actually have a pretty even team fight.
And any time that is good is going to be now, as Wind Drake is going to be coming up. Cloud having that versatility, not going to be the sole, unfortunately, for TSM Academy. And like you mentioned, if you need a team fighter to come into play, now's the time for when an objective is spawning. But of course, if the map is getting crunched in a little bit more and Nowhere continues to force you into these awkward lane matchups, it's going to be very difficult for TSM Academy, who on the back foot will try and struggle to find, but maybe they found a pick onto Big.
They found Big. He's going to be able to use the Ferromancy to be able to get over the wall. No Killer Instinct going to come out of Cody-san. Smart call. Don't know who's on the other side of the wall, and it was there waiting for them, so they have to back out of this fight and say that it's not going to work for us today. They were able to at least, force a little bit out of Big, get a little bit of control on the bot half of the map, and Rift Herald being popped mid lane as opposed to top lane. I guess I don't need to. Look at that. Only one play. Why bother?
Yeah, I think it was just Viper's call that said, you know what, I can go ahead and take this with a no contention whatsoever.
Blade, so.
Yeah, they just get a couple of plates as well. They get 3 plates for the price of 2 with that Herald, and you also win mid priority as well for this Dragon that's coming up. No Org is just playing an immaculate early game, as they are known for, and I talked about how the average goal discrepancy between No Org and their competition at 15 minutes is a 3,000 difference.
Oh, look at that.
Magical, we're already there, and it's only 12.
I'm just looking at Viper on that Sanguine Blade. I'm like, it's been a hot minute since I've seen that build. Then again, it's been a hot minute since I've seen Kalista top
I
lane,
remember when I did Sanguine Blade set in Garen. That was fun. Preseason was great. Preseason was a great time.
Well, hold on. TP, look at value using the Buster Shot. The Killer Instinct going to be able to get a huge shield, try to get the TP in the backline, try to see if they can have Big, get a lot of damage. So Bob Vip's going to be the first casualty in the fight. Your son barely going to be able to hold on to his life since Haunter was able to scare away the members of No Org. But because they no longer have that jungler, you can tell that No Org want to be able to get the objective.
With there's no contention whatsoever, but Vip is dead. Smite is not available for TSM Academy, and No Org will grab their second dragon of Game 1 of this series, moving them to an Earth Soul, a Mountain Soul for Game 1. And that's going to be oppressive, because, man, is it tough to try and kill a mobile ADC with this composition. Sure, you have a Vip that can run stun, job done, but you have multiple threats already. Value is starting to make waves.
That's
Look
not
at the damage
looking so good.
there.
Flashed away. Flashed forward by
what the
Viper.
heck?
He's taking the turret for how long now? Trying to see if he can get back, utilizing the kiting mechanics out of Kalista, but they're going to be able to get the flash headbutt pulverized. Trying to see if they can get the damage on and the shutdown for Yurson. So they've taken down Viper and at least gotten some gold. But goddamn, Viper, he's continuing to pull off some crazy mechanics.
Replay that one just to see it one more time, but Yurson also understanding and learning his lesson from his peers, saying, you know what, I know how Viper can play when you try and be charitable and give the kill over to a more prioritized player. I'm gonna just go ahead and grab this shutdown for myself to see if I can make myself a little bit more tanky to deal with this double ADC composition. So far, moving into the 14-minute mark, turret plates have fallen, and you can already see a turret in the top lane absolutely gone. 4 plates taken away in that mid lane. A lot of the economy that was available for No Org was able to be picked up.
The one thing, though, is, again, TSM Academy, we look at Cody-san. He was able to get a lot of plates for himself in the spot lane to be able to at least have some gold for the team. Unfortunately, though, it just seems like it's not going to really come to fruition. They're not going to really be able to utilize that because Viper here in this top lane. And I hear that we have a replay of that dive from Viper. I want to count how many times he took the turret shot, though. That's what I want to count here. You talk about it. I'm going to count.
1, 2. Okay. Well, okay, then he dies. 3, 4.
4. Okay, 4 is a lot for Kalista. Let's be honest.
Yes,
right
true. I will agree with you on that state.
It's not like you're a tank trying to tank this up, where it's like, what was the day of Nautilus where he was able to take like 20 shots or something from the turret? It's like, no, Kalista, she's not a heavyweight when it comes to her drinking. She can only handle 4 shots.
Of course. But, with that, they're also able to get this mid lane turret and help open up the jungle of TSM Academy a little bit more for themselves. And an unsung hero that has been able to survive through thick and thin of this Game 1 has been Big. We're just giving a little bit of a checkup. A 15-minute checkpoint has passed, and we are almost on the verge of a 5,000 gold diff. We're just about 500 off. Just got to sprint to the finish line for that one. And I tend to tell my friends and also my fellow analysts that 5,000 gold, the difference there is usually the game changer, where if you are at that 5,000 gold advantage, you pretty much have the game in your pocket, and all you need to do is continue to play that clean game, continue to play that macro style, outfight, but TSM Academy might find a catch here.
Pulled back in, though. Fate's call was not onto Big. It was utilized onto Anda, since, top lane Kalista. That's more likely what you're going to use, and this Olaf is going to be that much more tricky to be able to kill, especially since he's already got Gore Drinker. You already see the Mythic starting to come through on the side of NoOrg. They've got the item completed on the top side for Viper, as he's gotten at least that Noon Quiver to be able to be a little bit more impactful. Jesus, he has 1,000 gold more than his own teammate, who has the second most gold.
Love to see it, right? That's where that Noon Quiver's coming in from. It's all the difference between him and Five Fire. And Five Fire has also been performing very well in this game one. Both him and Big have not died just yet. The only one who is that power player of Viper in the top side of the map, only giving over 2 kills so generously to TSM Academy. And because of how efficient they're playing, it's giving me such a scary thought going into game 2, right? Like, you're at this point where you're not able to perform well in the early game. TSM Academy has really tripped and fumbled multiple times already.
Okay.
And
well, Big right now, taking a lot of damage. Magnet Storm's huge stun coming in. They're trying to see if they can at least take down your son. He's unchained. There it is. They're going to be able to get the run. A Sword Knight in the middle of everyone. Jay's taken down so quickly. Trying to get anything back for the team. Shockwave not going to be able to connect. It's a 1-4-2 trade. NoOrg are the ones who come out swinging yet again and getting a second charge out of Shelly too.
I just don't think you fight there. It's just at that stage where you saw Kalista, you saw value, these people pump damage, and Five Fire was also on the back line. Like, all of their damage threats were there. Why, like, you can't contest that.
Right.
Like, you have to surrender that turret and just try and save the resources that are in your jungle, and maybe try and force them away from the Krugs, but it's just unfortunate for them. But hey, at least Sword did the most damage in that fight.
I was about to say, he did the most damage, but how long was he in that fight for? He was able to get the gravity field down and the Chaos Storm, but he got blown up immediately. Like, he TP'd into that one, and if you watch, like, he only survives because of that gravity storm, but he died pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah, he was not in there for a long time at all. So this is, again, that catch. It's just, there's no real reason to fight here. You're not trying to defend anything. It's more of trying to punish Big overextending, but it's Rel. She is totally fine being in the thick of it, and because of that, all of this was hard force. Sword, just TP'd straight in. That was 0.1 second that he was in the team fight, and he was able to dish out the most damage for TSM Academy, while NoOrg was able to reap all of the rewards. And from here, we might be able to find another pick as Five Fire 3-0 on this Orianna, trying to zone out, play a little dodgeball against TSM.
Has a stopwatch as well, can be that much more difficult to be able to pin down, lock down, and kill. Even with the run set job done out of a BIP, he just not had that time to be able to utilize that, to be able to get into the back line, to lock down someone like Viper who can kite him. I mean, this pick is great out of the side of NoOrg, where Kalista, she's always going to be able to do that. And especially since you have that Sanguine Blade, you can toss Viper on side lane and never have to worry about him.
Yep. Oh, we'll always have that isolation bonus coming in from Sanguine until I think it's 2 members. It has to be 2 opponents that are next to you that it starts to decay. But at that point, that's what Hail Blades is for, is to make up and compensate for that difference. So don't play it in solo queue because you will get oppressed, but practice it out, prepare for Clash. Clash is coming up in 2 weeks, so hey, definitely try and throw that from Viper's library into your own champion pool.
I was going to say, with that Immortal Shield Bow as well, that much more difficult to be able to kill. So much life steal coming in. Jesus Christ. 3,500 gold deficit between him and a Haunter. Oh,
almost
man.
4K.
Yeah, and think about that. Haunter hasn't even died. That's how big this lead has been for Viper because of what he's been able to do on this Kalista. How many turrets he's been able to get. How much pressure this Kalista's been able to put in the side lane. And why TSM Academy aren't able to do much. And they're still grasping at the straws, trying to see if they can fight back against NoOrg, who were able to do exactly what their game plan was. Win lane, win game.
Well, the BIP caught in a little bit of a tight spot here.
Unfortunately, he could get kited too easily. They do trade it on the other side from Big, so it is a 1-for-1 at the moment. The Chaos Storm getting a lot of damage coming in onto Anda, who has to be able to get away. They had to be careful of that boulder. You can tell that value. He's waiting. He wants to be able to get that flank. Haunts are 2, though. They're trying to both be able to get out of this one. Maybe a little bit ambitious out of No Org since it is a 1-for-1 trade, but they did get a bit.
Yeah, but they can also take the Baron as well. They have the crucial members available. They can challenge it. On top of that, bait TSM Academy into a dull sense or a dull state of mind and into the darkness, but already they're just going and hitting the
behind. Gravity Fall was not able to get as much as they would have liked to. They get the flash coming in with the Fate's Call coming through, trying to get the knock, but not going to be able to get anybody. Instead, they're going to be able to have to back out of that one. His value's taking a little bit too much onto the head of Viper. Cody-san as well wants to be able to get back into that one. Value wasn't able to do too much. He was on the other side of that fight while Viper was trying to see if he could stay in the front of everyone. Unfortunately, it was just a bit too much out of No Org where they weren't able to find anybody.
Yeah, that scrappy skirmish in the mid lane, TSM Academy was able to save lives and also save some ground as well, being able to get some vision onto that river in the Baron. And this is just Babip unfortunately getting called out, though a lot of resources were used. The Orianna Shockwave and the lockdown coming in from Rel and the Ragnarok to just sort of make sure they had that zone in control to get that kill onto Udyr. However, because of that, that is where Big did lose his life. So some of those resources being stretched a little bit too thin for TSM Academy to punish. But it's no harm, no foul, right? Like, it's something where Big is totally fine losing his life if it is a jungler for a support, because then you can do things like contest the Baron because there's no smite on the other side of the map, and challenge for these 50-50s, do some sieging. You may not be able to dive because you don't have Rel anymore, but that's not how this composition works. This composition wants to find those pockets of vision where they can catch Babip in transition from buff to camp and then just take him out.
Well, and this is why Udyr for so long hadn't been played, right? Is that, sure, he can, run at people and he's got a lot of movement speed, but someone like Kalista can kite him back for days. How is an Udyr ever supposed to be able to get near to Viper? How is he ever supposed to be able to get near to Value? Really, the only target that he has in mind is going to be Fire, and if you're targeting Fire, that means Viper and Value are unleashing hell.
Ooh, your son?
Yep, yeah, that was a good call. I was about to say, you should not hex flash forward on that one, even though there's the TV coming in from Sword on the other side.
Yeah, this is a challenge for Dragon. It is Soul.
It is, but
Mountain Dragon was already taken, so remember, this is Soul Point for everyone. This is how Oppressive Norg has been able to take control of the map. And like I said, if you lose this Mountain Soul for TSM Academy, you got shields and you got beefy ADCs now on the side of Norg that you have to try and fight for, and no one likes a tanky ADC. I did not enjoy the Kog'Maw tank meta. And I don't think TSM Academy will.
Do you see what's happening? Is Viper has been getting free time with the Dragon. It is a Kalista, one of the best securing objectives.
Here he goes.
All you have to do is run. The smite goes over to Anda. They got the flash over the wall, but you can see the Magnet Sword coming in from Big. Going to be able to lock down Sword, blow him up. There, killing spree coming in. They got the Shockwave onto Babip. Chase him down, lock him down. Your son flashed by Value to take him as well. 3 kills with the Dragon Soul as well. Baron on the line. You better bet that No Org are going to take it.
And with only 2 members available for TSM Academy, this is as good as No Orgs for this Baron power play. They will take this one, hit that reset button, and parade themselves down this mid lane. Viper and Big don't even need to be there. They've got a wave to try and control this mid lane pressure, to go ahead and prime and prepare all of those waves for No Org to go ahead and apply the Baron power buff to. Also, they can take everything TSM Academy ever knew and loved in the jungle, taking away those camps, taking away the wolves, and the Grop to boot.
Well, we have a replay of that last fight to see what went wrong for the side of TSM Academy, and I feel like it's just the fact that, one, you'll let Viper have free time with that Dragon, so all he had to do is run with the smite coming in from Anda, and it's easy, and then the backside, Big's so big.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, there's no way that Babip can really have a 50-50. It's more of a 25-75 because of how oppressive Kalista can be with her Rend. And at that stage, it's just sort of a bear trap that you fall into. And unfortunately for Babip, he put his foot right smack dab into that Dragon and got taken out. So at this stage, it's like the game is pretty much over, Magical. Like, I'm sorry. This is where TSM is trying to take precautions into game 2, where they can say, well, let's see where No Org makes mistakes when they're ahead. What can we exploit? What other things can we do to keep our mental stable going into this match point of the series? Because at this passing, at this bridge, You cannot cross it. It has burned down to the ground, and the only thing that Nowhere can do to give TSM Academy a chance here is to grant them kills, grant them wins, grant them pressure, and that is a lot for Nowhere, who wants that all for themselves.
Exactly, when you have a 3-level disparity in the top laners, Viper's already got that Bloodthirster, so he's got a big old shield on top of his head as well. They're going to be able to siege down these inhibitor turrets pretty easily, utilizing value in the mid lane, and TSM Academy are just waiting it out. They don't really have many plays left in the book that they can go for.
Playing slow and steady. Remind the viewers that this is not a strong siege composition, but because of how far ahead they are, they can literally just walk into the base of TSM Academy. This is all the rewards and the consequences of how oppressive Viper was on the top side of the map. Onda taking 3 quadrants of the jungle once again, and of course, Fire and Big being those stable players. But there they go, trying to nail in the coffin.
Your son, look at that, flashed away just to be able to survive. He took so much damage even with Unchained. They got the Gnar into the wall, and to try to see if he can survive, but the Gore Drinker going to be pulled back in by the face call. Not going to be looking for the knockup. They actually are onto Haunter. He goes golden barely to being able to survive. It's going to be the shockwave onto Babip. They get the kill onto Haunter, and they might have to trade for the life of Big. With your son back in the fight, dead as well. They've got the game locked down now. They've got them at the steps. Double kill coming in from Viper. As Babip, Cody-san can only watch in horror and shock. They know they can't fight back. They know this game had been lost since pretty much moment 2 of the game when they couldn't have the top laner lane, and they, on the side of NoOrg, will take game 1.
Game 1, taking over NoOrg, and it is, like you mentioned, a lot of that game was told within the first 15 minutes just because of how oppressive the top side was for NoOrg on Viper with the Callista, and it's something that could have been saved, or at least salvaged for TSM Academy, because Haunter was playing the matchup right. Yes, you do not get to play the lane against a Callista when you are Gnar because of how she just absolutely bullies you off of those waves, but he was trying to save resources, not give over too much economy to Viper. But when they made that top lane play where Babip finds that catch onto Viper in the jungle and then tries to charitably grant over that kill to help Haunter catch up in that gold deficiency, that is where things start to fall apart. The small mistakes, the small hiccups, from there to sort slightly overextending to try and find that kill onto Big in the mid lane, to these odd calls of trying to find chokes in the jungle when you were not allowed, when there was vision pockets here and there between objectives. All of those slight disadvantages, TSM Academy continued to dig their own grave, but it was because NoOrg was still the man holding the shovel, being the one burying them into the ground, and of course NoOrg was still the dominant team in this game 1 of the series.
And here, we saw last time against CLG Academy, we kind of thought it would be a closer series, but NoOrg said, hell no, we're the dominant team here. Well, there's a reason we had a 12-series streak going on before we faced off against Zeus, and we're here to improve. We're here to be able to get to the proving grounds, get the best seed possible. And honestly, after game 1 against CSM Academy, I just don't know if they can be stopped.
Well, I've got a lot of questions, but I think the best way to do it is ask the analyst desk, because that is what they're there for. They've got the information, and I get a little bit of time to dissect it as well. So let's see if we can help them out with that.
You know what? Yeah, I agree. Let's give it over to the analyst desk. So, Rafa, I'll take it away.
Thank you, Magical and Coco, first for that hell of a game 1 to be open the series. If you're a NoOrg fan, but if you're a TSM Academy fan, you are definitely feeling a little Monka-S right now, as Haunter got the Direst treatment all right. He didn't get a chance to really play the game. Babip tried to bail him out, but it was a little far too late, and Viper pulled out Callista again, ladies and gentlemen. And whenever we see that type of game come out from NoOrg, there's only so much that the opposition are able to do. So there are a couple of things that we do want to look back and review how this game kind of spiraled out of control. But one of the things that we're going to take a look at first is how the early pathing started for both of these junglers, to kind of really illustrate how this setup came to be here. And Kelsey, I know you were really kind of harped up about this, looking at Babip, how his early game pathing affected Haunter's ability to be able to play in that lane.
Right, so honestly, it's not even necessarily on Babip, right? There's not a whole lot he can do. It's Olaf Callista level 1. Even if he pulls his support, if the enemy support matches in Rel, there's just so much more level 1 power coming out. So if Noorg wants to force the split map they can. Bobbit here, he's just trying his best to full clear his jungle and to get as much as he can, with Noorg kind of trying to delay his tempo a bit. But basically, like, he has to, in this situation, after we see the initial dive on top side, there's basically just going to be a position where, okay, Bobbit actually just has to sacrifice his own jungle tempo to try to salvage what is happening top lane. He's just kind of almost uncertain. He gets his bot scuttle and then recalls, but there's not a whole lot of options for him after that as soon as Hansard dies. Hansard's not getting any CS whatsoever, and Bobbip has to try to face check or try to path up the salvage. He's not even, I mean, look at this. He basically just has nothing that he can do here, right? Like, he can try to save this, but they definitely just lose 2v2. So all he can do is try to chase Anda out of his jungle.
Well, unfortunately for Hansard, and like you said before, that this is a situation where no org willingly take the Olaf into the Udyr matchup just because early on, at least, you do kind of win that matchup in an isolated vacuum, especially in that 2v2. And so for if we had to look back and how you're able to prevent that split from happening, there's not many options that you are able to do. It is definitely easier to look back and say that Babip didn't make the correct choices. There are just definitely a couple things, I think, in terms of efficiency he could have done. He could have picked up some of his bot camps in the time that he was spent waiting for Scuttle Crab to respawn, or in his indecisiveness to take the Gromper first because he was pushed back by the bottom lane for no org. But then we move on forward to the first skirmish that we get in the game. Not necessarily first blood, but it is where a lot of members come to the party. And Jensen, I know you were really interested about how TSM's new support, Yurson, was able to play in this fight.
Right, and I think that this is what we're talking about, right, in terms of the elements for success for TSM, and this is what we call in Yurson facilitating superior skirmishes around the mid lane, and everything was going according to plan. This is where I say that TSM can kind of excel using this coordination to mid and jungle facilitated by support, but this is where Sword comes through, and this is why he's still a rookie player of sorts, brought up through the junior program, a little bit shaky on stage, sees the blood in his eyes, sees the potential kill, flashes forward for it, and instead of just using the fact that they've won the 3v3 mid to then control the map, he then blows the lead and gives the double kill with the Firefire. And if we are part of the TSM coaching stuff, this is probably the part of the game where we look at a review and we said, okay, hey, don't do this again. Understand that map control is the important point at this point of the map when you're dealing with a split map, kind of like a chaotic scenario for your jungler, and then they can talk about how you're moving into the next game.
Overall, in general, I would say that a lot of the things that Babip did early were things that had to be done. If TSM are able to kind of decelerate what no org wants to do, then you see that Victor pick in the mid lane. Sword was easily set up to be the star because you have so much low range coming out of no org's side. So if they ever get to a 5v5 scenario, Victor just lays down the gravity field, the ultimate, and then basically you're fighting into a situation where all of your champions are losing half of your health automatically. You can't even really match Victor in the side lane with the Callista because of the range disadvantage that Callista is going to have, and the fact that Udyr is just going to rain on your parade the whole time. So in general, if they don't get like a little hyphy in that mid lane skirmish, their chances of taking the game go up considerably.
Now, if I'm the
Sword
stuff for
job
either of
tonight.
these teams, right? So if I'm the stuff for either of these teams right now after the game, I'm going to be looking at probable ways that Noah wins the next game as well. And from the way that I saw TSM responded to that, probably I'm going to have written on my notebook that TSM doesn't respond to split map as well. And while you can say that Babip did a lot of things that he had to do, there was a lot of inefficiencies in what he was doing, and the fact that they didn't identify that now there's a possible 4v2 dive on the bottom side of the map, and all these factors, right? TSM in terms of their playbook and how far that has developed, and it's natural given that they have a new member of the team at this point of time, is not developed. So if we go into the next game, I think a big thing in terms of drop is either TSM has to drop something that's stronger level 1, or they really need to be spending this 15 minutes, 10 minutes or so and discuss very clearly, okay, this is how we prevent the level 1 and this is our response to it, so that if no org repeats a similar strategy for the second game, they have a response prepared.
And just look on your screen, the forward percentage. Honestly, they were like the top side of the map. They were just living on TSM Academy's side. Hunter could hardly push waves past River, even throughout the course of the game. You saw Nor just being able to consistently use that pressure to shift across the map. We saw a fight in jungle around 17. As soon as 17 minutes, as soon as you saw Hanser basically hitting the wave at all, they just immediately looked for a good collapse angle and just let it rip. You can probably see it on your screen in a second here.
There we go.
Yeah, so there we go. We see Hanser hitting the wave here, which lets Noorg know that they can just hit this in their face. They're able to have Oriana on the mid wave and then shift into this 1-4 that we wanted to see more of. Basically just really recognizing how ahead their tempo is, only having to play 2 lanes using the Rift Heralds. And even though Sword dies almost instantly, he does end up doing quite a bit of damage in that fight.
Oh, okay. I feel like you really want to say something here for TSM
Sword's
Academy.
good. He did well that game. I want to give him praise because this is a guy that we've been kind of hard on for most of the broadcasts. We've been like, hey, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to create some of these plays. Maybe feeling like he has to be the one to make kind of the game deciding play. And even in this one, like Kelsey and Johnson have been saying, he was doing, I think, the most that he could with the kind of situation that he had. Right, mid lane is kind of going to be a desert between him and Five Fire as he's kind of waiting on his jungle. I think that with Yurson, I think they played pretty well together so far. And if we're looking at this, I think that going into game 2, I think that putting more resources into Sword is a potentially viable strategy, at least in this series versus Noorg.
Yeah, I think Jensen caught during our little private desk conversation and watch party during the game that even when Sword teleported into that jungle fight and immediately got blown up, he still had the most damage out of anyone on the team there. I think it was like a solid 5,000 dealt to the entire team just within that fight. And the fact that it was within 2 seconds, it just goes to show that, like, hey, you know what? There's a world where if TSM Academy were able to actually stall out that game and not let it blow out of control, they could have definitely come back. We know that TSM Academy aren't always the best at mid-late game, but just in terms of overall raw damage output, they definitely had it in their potential wheelhouse. Now we are getting ready for game 2 here, and we have just about a minute left before we get back into game 2 and throwing it back to the casters. I want to go to Jensen here. Just quick wrap thoughts. What for TSM Academy are you looking to take away in terms of or adaptations for the pick and ban phase?
Like I mentioned previously, find a way to secure yourself a stronger mid 2v2, a clear-cut stronger mid 2v2 for sure. Either up your Syndra priority in the draft, or maybe even go for a blind pick Zoe somewhere in that, or start banning out the Olaf and make sure that your blind pick jungler is able to secure the 2v2 win condition, right? Because if I'm thinking about how does TSM win against no orc, that 2v2 mid has to come through, be it from the draft or from correcting the small mistakes that are happening in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, looking at that draft, it's amazing to me that Noorg didn't run away with the game on the top side even harder. Just looking 1-to-1 across the board, basically only one of those champions has a stronger level 1 than his opposite role on Noorg, and that's the Kai'Sa to the Tristana, right? Which isn't going to do a whole lot for you in terms of preventing that topside split map. Overall, we saw the forward percentage, we saw how much Olaf was able to just impose the split map, so TSM just really didn't have a lot of good options there.
Yeah, not many options here for TSM Academy if they don't make any adaptations going into Game 2. But we're going to see what those changes are going to be as Coco and Magical, I believe, are ready and on standby to take us away for the second game of the series.